Hi everyone, this is Helena Kraus and welcome to another card video. Actually, in this video we're not gonna make a card, but we're gonna make a light box using the new August 2020 My Monthly Hero Kit from Hero Arts. So like a little pic here. So before we go into the project for today, let me show you. This is one card sample using the main kit, and this is the other one is with some of the add-ons. So here is the main kit. It's 6x8 stamp set. And the theme for this month is staycation. Also, there are coordinating dies, and there's a word die, greeting from, that comes with the main kit. Next, we have the US map infinity dies, and here's a little card that I made with it. I made the second to the largest die, and there are little add-ons like little hearts and like the pinpoint for the map and so on. Also, you use the destination home bold prints. Actually, this is the staycation bold prints. So we have here Mikasa Camp. We have lounging pops stamp set that comes with coordinating dies, and there's a little grass die that doesn't have the bottom, so you can make it as tall as you wish. Next, we have the bubble bath stamp set and coordinating frame cuts. We have the onesie infinity dies, and we have the t-shirt infinity dies. We have the tie-dye stamp set. We have the August word die. We have pool party, the birdhouse, and this is the destination home bold prints. And there's another that I forgot to include in the video, greetings from Stamp and Cut. So let's get started. I have a bunch of die cuts here that I die cut from all the stamp sets that come, the add-ons, and also the main kit. So I have them ready to stamp directly on the die cuts. So I'll be using my MISTI. I have here adhesive mat that instead of taping my negatives from the die cuts, I'll just stick that on top. So it makes it a little bit easier to stamp and a little bit faster. So I'm just securing that mat with the magnets onto the MISTI so it doesn't move, so it always stays on the same place. So once I'm done positioning the negatives, I'll just pick out the stamps that I want to use. So use the tent with the two kids in it. So I'm positioning that on top of the opening. Also, I'll use one of these battery operated lights. Those are great for like anything like you can put in a jar or kind of fairy lights and similar things. I'll just put it in my box. So just put that aside. Let's now move on to stamping. Sorry, you're seeing my head here for a little bit. So first I'll stamp the tent. I'm using the Hero Arts Intens-ified black ink to do all my stamping for today. Also, I'll be using the embossing and watermark ink for the sentiment. So I'm stamping a couple of times to make sure that I have nice and intense, intense black impression. Next, I'll remove that one. And I'm trying to determine which other elements I want to use. So I have here a A2 card front that we're gonna trim in a little bit, but I'm just trying to see what else I want to put besides the kids in the tent. So I decided to go with the table, the stack of books, and the plant. So I think that will look nice. I'm trying to make an indoor scene here, like indoor tent. Again, I'm positioning those stamps in the openings of the negative of the die cuts. I removed the tent stamp, and now I'm picking up those with the lid of my MISTI. Now I'm going to put the actual die cuts in the slots. I just need to pull out the book ones there, and I'll stamp. So I'm inking all 3 stamps at once. This makes it really fast to stamp if you're mass producing or if you're stamping a bunch of images at once. Again, I'm adding a little bit more ink to have that nice saturated black impression. And I'll just remove those. So we have all the images that we need. So I'm just kind of positioning to see where I want them to go. And I think that looks nice. And now we're going to trim this panel. The first go around, I trim it to 3/4 by 5. And then I'll go again and trim it down to 3.5 by 4 3/4, a little bit smaller. So I'm just writing down my dimensions here. So when we build the box to go like the little matchbox or the little shadow box, I know the dimensions and I can make it the correct size. Next, we're going to do some ink blending. I'm positioning the tent to see where I want that. I'll do ink blending for the floor and the wall. And I'm using some post-it tape to create that line that's between the floor and the wall. I'm using the Camel Hybrid ink and ink blending tool to apply the ink. I'll just speed up here a little bit. So I'm applying ink until I'm satisfied with the saturation of the color. If you want lighter, you can apply less layers and just go with how you like it to be. If you want darker, of course you apply more ink. Kind of keep blending. So I think I'm good with that one. Now I'm going to remove that post-it tape and position it to the line. So we can ink blend the top part for the wall. I'm using sky blue, or actually I'm using cornflower blue, and an ink blending brush. Here notice that some of that camel was getting mixed with the blue, so I added a new strip of post-it tape. Just ink blending from the connecting point of the wall and floor going towards the top of my panel. So I think that looks good. I'll remove the post-it tape. I'll add one on top, and then I'm using the sun rays or some background stencil. I figured out this one was great to create those boards on the hardwood boards. So I'll go back with that camel ink and just do a little more ink blending, and when we remove the stencil you will see the lines that it creates and creates that nice floorboards. So next we'll just color our images. I'm using Copic markers and I'm mixing up, I used some of the Spectrum Noir markers too, alcohol based markers. You can use any coloring medium of your choice. This is what I had handy, so that's what I'm using. I'm just finishing here. I skipped a bunch of footage here from the coloring because I'm just doing pretty basic coloring. So next I'm using a Sharpie pen, like fine line pen, and I'm using, you can use a ruler, but I decided just to use the edge of the cardstock to draw those floorboards. Kind of makes them stand out a little bit more. So I'm again making sure everything fits nicely, and I'll keep coloring. Again, this is the plant. I'm using greens for the leaves. Then I color the box, and then we're moving to the table. I'm just doing basic and quick coloring. So here we go. Now we can I can stamp the sentiment before I adhere all the elements, all the parts that we made. I'll adhere the greetings from, and before I adhere that, I'll stamp from my place of sanctuary. So I'll use the embossing and watermark ink to stamp that sentiment. So it matches the die cut greetings from. We're going to emboss in white. I'm applying the anti-static powder tool and stamping that sentiment a couple times using my MISTI, making sure it's straight. Next, I have the white embossing powder, and we're gonna heat set it now. So I'm starting from the back, warming up that embossing powder so it kind of sticks to the cardstock, and then going from the front so I don't have any flyaways or it's nice and bold. I'm using the Hues Arts Precision Glue Pen to adhere that sentiment. So when it dries clear. So if you have a little bit, like when you press this down to adhere, if you have a little bit that comes out of the back of that die cut, it will dry clear. So next here I have Periwinkle cardstock that measures 7.5 by 8 3/4, and we're scoring at it 1 and 2 inches at each side. So this will create that shadow box. So again, this is 7.5 by 8 3/4, and I scored at 1 inch and 2 inches. And then I turn it around 90 degrees. I scored again at 1 and 2, again 90 degrees at 1 and 2, and one more time 90 degrees and 1 and 2. Now I'm cutting out the tabs that will help us create this shadow box. So just leave that one little tab, and they'll connect towards like the top and bottom of that shadow box, the shorter side. So you need to leave the tab on the longer side. So here you can see how I'm creating those tabs. I cut a little bit under angle. So again, I'll have the dimension listed in the description in the bottom of this post as well. I'll have them on my blog. So we're just putting it together. Those tabs go in first, and then I have one more layer, like one more like those large tabs. So we create nice and smooth edges, so it's not sharp, so you don't get paper cut or cardboard cuts. Here's our light. It's about 1 inch wide. So that's why I made the shadow box 1 inch, so we fit that light nicely on the bottom. And just punch a hole to fit that cable with the lights through. So we're gonna have the light battery and the on and off and on button on the bottom of the box, so it's not inside the box. You don't need to open it every time you want to turn it on, so it will be on the outside. And the cover of the box will be a little bit longer than our shadow box. So the box is 4 3/4 inches tall and 3.5 inches wide. So that cover, the shell, will be 5 inches tall. So you will see that in a minute. Now we're adhering those second layer of flaps towards the inside, and here I'm using adhesive tape that's 1.25 inches wide, or actually, yeah. And I'm adhering towards the inside. So we have one left. Next, we have the sentiment here. I'll adhere all the elements. Here I'm using, I wanted different dimensions, kind of different layers. So I doubled up my foam tape, and I'll use the double up foam tape on the tent, and behind the tent we'll have the plant on a single layer, popped up on single layer of tape. Just cutting little pieces here so we make sure we have nice support on that tent. I'm adhering there. Trim the end. So next we're gonna adhere that plant. I'm using single layer of tape. Also we'll do the same with the table, and the books will adhere the books on double layer of tape. So we have that piece there that I had left over from the tent. I'll just add some on top because the bottom goes over the table and it fits nicely into that tray or box. Just adding some liquid adhesive on the back and adhere that inside. Next, what we'll do, I'll thread through the light string. Make sure that it's nice and straight, and then I use some tape on the inside, the sticky tape, to make sure that it goes nicely along the edges so it doesn't go in front of the sentiment or the images. Also, I'm adding tape on the back of that battery to adhere it on the bottom of that tray or that shadow box. So it works fine. And if you have, in case you have longer string of lights or you want shorter string, you can cut those. Just cut it close to the light. Just leave a little bit, like 1/8 of an inch wire hanging through, and you'll be fine. So next I have two pieces of Nautical cardstock that are measuring 5 by 4 3/4. 5 is the tall side that goes the height, and the width is 4 3/4, and I scored at 1 inch, and then I scored at 1 1/4 inch for both the same. And next I'm putting them atop around that shadow box to make sure that it fits nicely, and I'm using the rectangle infinity dies to cut a window in the front so we can see the inside. So by magic of YouTube, I have already that die cut, and I'm using one of the Hero Arts Acetate sheets to add one on the back. So I'm using some sticky tape again. I'll just apply the tape around that window. Also, the acetate sheet holds that, kind of gives more sturdiness to that window. Just adding a colored cardstock on the bottom here so I can see a little bit better. So I think that fits nicely. So what we can go here is, I'm just using my bone folder to make sure that that's adhered nicely. I'm adding some liquid adhesive of one of the tabs there, the 1/4 inch one. So make sure that's nice and straight. So next I'm wrapping around that box, and then I'll adhere the other flap on the other side. So that's it. So here is our little box. I just turned off the light here so you can see better, and that's all for today. Thanks for watching, and don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel. Also visit my blog for more ideas and inspiration. Thanks for watching. Bye!